All right, so again, for those that don't know me, I'm Tim WM8A, CRO for District 1. I actually am relatively new to the hobby. I got a license in 2014 and was thrown into the deep end of the pool. Less than a year of having my ticket, I was appointed as a EC. And an EC of a county that's had a long history of conflict and problems. And so after 3 years, I was ready to step aside, and then John said, oh, not so fast, and said, how would you feel of taking over District 1? So I've been in that position just under 2 years now. So as I go and visit other clubs in the county and other counties and go throughout the state, what is it? Why is it that some counties are going gangbusters? Some counties just cannot seem to get past petty bickering, and it has nothing to do with resources and nothing to do with geography. Why is it that Pete's district can go gangbusters and yet some other bigger counties are still struggling? What is it? I think I've come up with something. So we're going to talk about 3 basic temperaments of amateur radio operators. Now, when we're talking of temperament, okay, I'm not talking personality. Based on what stress is going on in your life, how you're feeling, if you're hungry, if you're tired, if you're worn out, and you take a personality exam, you might get a different result based on how you're feeling. When I'm talking temperaments, I'm talking something much more basic. This is who you are, and this is how you think. Webster's Dictionary defines it as a characteristic or habitual inclination or mode of emotional response. Okay? That leaves a lot to be desired. I think it's best. I'm a child of the 90s. My favorite band in growing up was a band called Oasis from the Great Britain, and they were a tremendously successful band, but they ended up breaking up because the 2 lead brothers could not get along. In an interview, the lead brother, Noel, said, speaking of his brother, Liam is like a dog, and I am more like a cat. Cats are very independent creatures and enjoy being left alone. Liam is always in your face, play with me, please throw the ball for me, they need company. It's as basic as that. There's nothing wrong with a dog or a cat, but we cannot change who you are. That is what I'm talking about. This is how you think, this is how you approach things, and this is not something that's going to change going forward. So I came up with these 3 basic temperaments. Again, I come before you with a great amount of humility. Most of you have been hams longer than I've been alive. I'm sure Dale has radios older than me. I would bet that Jim has probably spent more times in porta potties at Hamvention than I've been a ham. So I come before you with an enormous amount of humility. So take it with a grain of salt, and we'll go from here. Let me introduce you to the tinkerer. The tinkerer is motivated by the technology. Okay? They get really excited, 24-bit digital signal processor, kind of get macho about the whole thing. They are typically very poor communicators. Kind of ironic, being in a hobby of communications. They're not accustomed to leadership roles. Typically, they come from technology and engineering backgrounds, so they're very good at picking out faults and very good at letting you know about those faults. Can be very difficult working with others to that effect. Can be extremely valuable to a club or Aries Corps when driven and when motivated. Acknowledgement, awards, that doesn't get them excited. They'd rather be on the bench working, they'd rather be taking apart something, they'd rather be soldering. It's just acknowledgement, recognition, that's not their thing. Let me introduce you to the doer. The doer is motivated by getting things done. The get-her-done mentality. I have seen a 50-50 mix of really good communicators and really terrible communicators that are doers. I've seen a 50-50 mix of those that are suited for leadership positions and those that are not suited for leadership positions. Typically, I've seen them come from blue-collar backgrounds or trades. They can be very difficult to harness. They want to go and get it done. You really want to have, do we got to talk about this? Do we got to have another meeting about a meeting? Come on, let's just get it done and stop talking about it. Can be very good at delegating. These are the guys, typically, that you'll see that are setting up field day. They're coordinating field day. They're the ones setting up. They're the ones taking down. They're the ones putting everything together. They're the ones packing up the list for field day. These are the guys you absolutely need. You cannot do without them. They're eager to step up and volunteer. However, they can be very loud and dominate the conversation. At a meeting, these typically are the characters that are taking over the meeting, and enough talk, let's just do. They desire and thrive and are motivated by recognition. If you do not recognize their efforts, they will tell you. And they will maybe install one of these apparatuses on their back. The planner thrives on structure, a plan, everyone being on the same page. These are your people. Typically, they're accustomed to leadership roles. Typically, they're great communicators. Typically, I've seen them come from sales, service, training backgrounds, maybe education, retired teachers. However, they have a tendency to overcomplicate things, make things far more difficult than what's necessary. Slow to step up, be heard, typically needs to be recruited, cajoled into a role. Hopefully that's not how you guys feel about right now. They're driven by results and by goals, achieving goals rather than recognition. Well, Tim, wait a second. You just described me in two separate categories. Well, this is where it gets difficult. I found that typically most hams have one of the two traits. Excuse me, two of the three traits. One dominant and one secondary. How many ECs are in this room? I'll challenge you guys this. Next time you have a training meeting and you've got over a dozen people there, watch the room. Look at the room and look who sits, where they sit, and who they sit with. And I promise you, they will sit amongst themselves. They'll segregate themselves. Not that they don't like one another, but they typically gravitate towards those temperaments. It's kind of a really neat thing. Once you start watching it and paying attention, you'll see it happen. I promise you. So what happens when clubs and ERPSCs are missing a role? I call this the getting ready to get ready club. So we've got a doer and taker in leadership roles. Maybe multiple. We have no direction. We have no plan. Always talking about what we could do. I submit to you that the vast majority of clubs and Aries Corps are in this category. We may have some planner tinkerers. We may have some planner doers that are coming up with a plan. But by and large, I see a lot of clubs are just coasting. Just kind of going through the motions. We're kind of still dragging on. We're not really growing, but we're not really dying either. We're just slowly coasting. We have no idea what we're going to do next year. No clue what we're going to do 3 years from now. And 5 years from now is too far to even concept. The Pipe Dream Club has great ideas, great plans. Nothing's happening. Nothing's getting done. So what are we going to do for field day? Well, we could do this, we could do that. But nothing's getting done. Nobody's gone out to the repeater site in 10 years. Nobody's stepping up to get anything done. This is I call the Can You Hear Me Now Club. We've got great ideas. We've got great plans, but nothing's working. The repeater doesn't work. Somebody got electrocuted during field day. We don't know what we're doing. So the annoyance flow, the doer says to the planner, come on, we're going to have another meeting about a meeting. Let's just get on with it and do it already. The tinkerer says, go ahead, go out to the repeater. You guys have no idea what you're doing. Let me know when it breaks down. And the planner says to the tinkerer, come on, we got to come up with a plan already. What are we doing? If we work in this fashion, and we continue to work in this fashion, guys, we're going to be dead in 5 years. That's a hobby. That's my prediction. Something magical happens when the flow goes this way. The planner works with the tinkerer. We have a plan, a goal, direction. The tinkerer comes up with an idea of how to do it, what needs to be done. The doer goes and gets it done. What do we got to do next? Something magical happens here. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't cover this. Reagan said the closest thing to internal life on Earth is a government program. Well, he obviously was not a ham. Because hard feelings and slights in amateur radio, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to die. Generationally. I actually had a ham tell me once that I will not get on because sometime back in the 70s, my grandfather checked into the net and he wouldn't take his check in. So I'm not getting into that net. And I spoke to the other guy and he had no idea what was going on. He had no idea about it. If you feel wronged, something that you absolutely cannot move past, deal with it and let's move on. You know, Paul, every time you see me, you ask me to put a light bulb in my mouth. I don't even know what that's about. But it really hurts me. It hurts my feelings. Now what's Paul going to say? Deal with it? Come on, let's just try, just once for Facebook. I had one of my key operators when I was in EC. I gave this presentation, and afterwards he set me aside and he said, Tim, there was one time during the training you had said this, you made a joke at my expense. I know you didn't mean it the way it came off, but it really bothered me. And he was honest enough to tell me that, and to this day we are fantastic, close brothers in the hobby because he was honest enough to say, and to be honest guys, I didn't even remember it. And I had no idea that he was offended by it. And I'm a people. Everything that you just heard in John's presentation, is this something unique? It's something precious and something to honor that we have here? Where else are you going to meet a Paul? Going to meet a Tom? Going to meet a Pete? Going to meet a Jacqueline? Is it something different and something to protect and something to cherish? Is it? Absolutely. We don't have time to be arguing if it's a 4 or if it's a 3. Perspective has to be taken into account in order to resolve conflict with a group of volunteers. Whether or not I intended to hurt that operator's feelings, it doesn't mean anything. I made the comment, I made the joke, I didn't mean anything by it, but he took offense to it. He was honest enough to tell me, I apologized, we moved on. I guarantee you, a lot of the conflicts that I hear about throughout the state, the other party doesn't even know about. Half of it, probably. Or doesn't even know why the other side is so offended. We're just still at war. There are some people that thrive on drama, conflict, and can negatively affect a group for generations. Now, is there anyone in here that has too many volunteers, other than Jeff? That has more than what they need. But, however, if you get a guy whose attitude, or gal, excuse me, Jeff, if you get an operator whose attitude is just not workable, they're pessimistic, they're negative about everything, and it's creeping over into the served agencies, and served agencies see that's someone that you cannot, I don't think it's someone that you can work with. At some point in time, you have to make a decision for the betterment of the hobby. I don't think it's working out. Now, that's a whole lot easier for me to say that from my ivory tower here than to be on the front lines, dismantling a nuclear weapon. But because typically, once you cut someone loose like that, that's where those hard feelings fester. That can be one of those areas. It's easy to be negative. It's easy to be pessimistic. It's easy to be cynical. John's got me doing Aries Connect, and Imison wants me to do position task book, and it's easy to be negative. It takes effort to be positive. So a lot of you probably know I live in chronic pain. I suffered a stroke at 29, and I live in chronic pain. I cannot afford to take the risk to go to negative town. I can't do it because it will affect my health and affect my livelihood. So it takes effort to go the high road, but the view is so much better. So much better. What's the takeaway in all this, guys? So everybody who raised your hands, it's your job to find out where these people are useful and what they're good at and where they can best serve the hobby and serve your corps and serve your groups. That's our job, guys. At the end of the day, that's it. There's a whole lot of other things that come along with it, obviously, but our job is dealing with people and allowing people to serve their community and enjoy the hobby. Be teachable and moldable for leaders in the hobby. There's been times I've been asked to do stuff I did not want to do. But I did it, and I found out, hey, it's something I was good at. We got to be respectful to each other. This stuff, arguing whether it's a 6 or 9, has got to end. We've got no time for it, guys. I can't be easily offended if Paul asks me to put a light bulb in my mouth. I can't hold on to slides. Of course, I'm just picking on Paul. He didn't ask.
Well, you should do it, but just make sure it doesn't have any wires attached to it.
No wires.
Toxic members, we just don't have any more time. This is the most exciting time to be in the hobby. We've got unbelievable opportunities. We don't have time for people that are going to whine and complain and cry over everything. Ask how I can help grow the group. How can I help grow the hobby? You get folks in your group that ask that question. If he's professional, has basic hygiene, he or she, and will do what he's told, he or she, that's someone I can do something with. That's someone that I can help serve the community with. Whether I like them or not, whether I would have them over for dinner, whether I take a car ride with them, that has nothing to do with it. Do they have the right and the, should they have the opportunity to serve their community? Absolutely. We got to be honest and approachable with each other. We got to be flexible with tasks and assignments. I think every DEC in here has had an assignment that they didn't particularly like, didn't particularly want, may have gotten unanimously voted in to do something they didn't want to do at a meeting they didn't attend. We got to be flexible. Any comments, questions?
Take that light bulb out of your mouth.
Does this make sense?
Yep. Yes.
Anything?
I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's a problem that we've all seen in one way, shape, or form. I was on a net about 3 or 4 months ago, and I heard someone complaining about what happened on a net in 1987.
I was in kindergarten.
I couldn't believe it.
I was in kindergarten at that time. So, and you hear stuff like this, and it's like, you've been harboring that? What a negative lifestyle to be holding on to that for that long.
Well, and the guy was bitter about it.
Really bitter.
And almost like he had to create recruits and convert people to believe the way that he felt, you know? So,
I was gonna say, Tim, same thing. I've got a friend of mine that got me into ham radio with my mentor. He works over at Grand Valley Steak. He's a broadcast engineer. I mean, he can make a styrofoam cup transmit a signal. I've seen him do wonders with things. He still will not talk on the Saginaw repeater when he comes into town because of something that happened back in the 80s. He just refuses to. He won't call me on it. He'll call me on the Bay City or the Midland repeater. If you want to talk to me, talk on that. I refuse to talk on it because. And I'm
So
thinking,
you've been at a public service
it was
event or a
30
drill or something like
That
that?
was 30 years ago. Get over it. And it's kind of like, no, I'll never get over it. It's kind of, it's okay, you're lost.
And it's probably not even the same equipment?
Oh, no.
Probably not even the same antenna?
And
probably
it
not
happened to
even
be
the same
over,
feedback.
over building.
It physically has nothing to do with the other than
Yeah.
that it might be the same frequency and call
It
sign.
was over building the repeater. They had two groups when they were deciding to put in a new repeater back in the 80s. And one group wanted this and the other group wanted that. And then they got fighting between them. And so it's just, and I mean, he's a real good friend and a brilliant guy, but it's kind of like, get over it, would you? It's,
I just wanted to compliment you on how you mentioned about not going to negative town. Like yourself, I've had some serious traumas and things to contend with since like 2015 forward. And the way I had to approach it myself is like, I can either be positive, like my mentor with a similar call sign, to be like John as much as I can. Like one of the things I like about John, RCR, WB at RCR, is that if he's having a bad day, he never shows it, and that's an asset or a personality asset that I just respect completely. But with what I've gone through as well as yourself, I'm sure there's only really two directions. You can go to negative town, which is toxic, as you said in the presentation, or you can try to be as positive as you possibly can be, not to the point of being buttery, but you know, approach things positively and you can get more done. And that's why I've kind of had this, I'm not giving up. I may have to find different ways to do things and different paths to get there, but I'll get it done in the end.
Probably, like yourself, I've had to expel friends and family members out of my circle because I just can't allow that juju into my world right now.
Thanks for bringing it up. I think that was great.
There was another temperament class that I took long ago in my professional position. And there were 4, not 3, but that doesn't matter. And the question that came up was, which of these 4 is the most successful as a leader? And the answer was, they are all equally successful. And the secret is as a leader, and we're all leaders in this room, is to be able to understand what the other person that you're dealing with needs. What do they need to be happy? What do they need to be satisfied? And you need to give that to them. If they need to tinker, then you need to give them an opportunity to tinker. If they need to do something, then you need to give them an opportunity to do something.
Again, that's
But
our jobs.
don't ask the tinker to be a planner. Right? So you need to understand the people that you're working with and give them what they need to be happy and successful.
And again, think of this in terms of how they think and how they approach things and what motivates them and how you're going to make them happier in the hobby and happy in your group. Go ahead.
Can you also put these slides online with the other ones?
You'll put them on the website. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments before we close out? Well,
I'd
thank
like
you
to
guys.
just to dovetail on one thing that he said, I'll keep this short. I think that he's right about there being sort of a missing piece from the professional world, but we have that in ham radio, and that's the directive leadership style, right? Where you get those that get into an organization and instantly they've got to be the boss. And that can upset the apple cart too.
Sometimes people can come from the executive world and think, well, I need to be I'm still an executive.
Right.
No, you're not. And then others don't want to be, And 11 months after getting the ticket, guess what? Here you are. I'm still waiting for that 20% raise. Well, thank you, guys.
Wait, you got 20%?